The primary role of yeast is to convert the sugars present in the grapes into alcohol. The yeast accomplishes this by utilizing through a series of metabolic pathways that, in the presence of oxygen, produce not only large amounts of energy for the cell, but also many different intermediates that the cells need to function. It is through this process of fermentation that ethanol is released by the yeast cells as a waste product. Eventually, if the yeast cells are healthy and fermentation is allowed to run to the completion, all fermentable sugars will be used up by the yeast, with only leaving behind a negligible amount of residual sugar. As far back as history can tell us, man has been making wine. Archaeologists have found evidence of wine being purposely made as far back as 12,000 years ago. Wine was very present in early Egypt, almost being an industry of its own as early as 2000 BC. Yet, wine yeast was not discovered until the 1850s, when French scientist Louis Pasteur suggested that wine fermentation was the result of a living organism. So, why do we need to use wine yeast now? When for so many years man has successfully made wine while being completely oblivious to its existence? Well, there are two parts to this answer. To say that man has successfully made wine over the years is not completely true. Bad batches of wine were made quite often. Wines that developed mold, wines that remained cloudy and visually unappealing, wines that eventually turned into vinegar. They were all part of the mix of what was being made alongside the good batches of wine that kept man's interest in the drink for so long. Yeast is naturally everywhere. Can't see it, but it's in our homes, on the trees and plants. It floats in the air. We breathe it in every day. And it's this natural yeast that also lands on the fruit and provides for a natural fermentation when we crush the fruit and expose its sugars and nutrients to the yeast. The problem is that natural yeast is a package deal. What I mean to say that yeast is not the only thing that's everywhere. Vinegar bacteria, mold, spores, and many other types of little nasties are on the fruit as well, waiting to spoil the fun. Yeast does have the upper hand in the sense that it is, on average, more capable of taking over the fruit more so than the other competing organisms. It's also capable of actually destroying any remnant numbers of these organisms once it has taken hold of the fruit. But quite often, the yeast will let us down, just like my ex-wife, and allow these other cultures to take over the fruit and cause it to become something other than wine. And this is how the unknowing story went for so many years. In the more current times, since Louis Pasteur's discoveries, we have developed a better understanding of what takes place during the fermentation. We understand that natural yeast is a package deal. We now know how to isolate a strain of yeast, preserve it, and package it. With pure strains of packaged wine yeast available, the winemaker can now simply put the juice through a sterilization process, killing all the wild molds and bacteria, and then simply add a fresh strain of packaged yeast to it, allowing the winemaker to start with a clean slate and a big advantage. Our juices have gone through this process.